the Career Corner. My name's Heather Swift, and I'm delighted to be your host. The purpose of the Career Corner is to help people move from career distress to career success. Today, we're going to be speaking with my special guest, the founders of WhoWeUse, a new app that was just released in our local community last week. I have John Garbarino, co-founder and CEO, Spencer Ante, co-founder and president, and head of design, Felix Sockwell. Guys, welcome to the Career Corner.
Thanks for having us.
We have this extra special sign here, WhoWeUse. You might have seen them around. We'll talk about this a little bit later. Heard they've been a little bit of controversy around town.
Sort of.
So how did WhoWeUse come into existence?
The way it came to existence. Well, I moved to Maplewood and met a lot of other folks, some guys like Felix and others that played sports together. And some guys played tennis, some guys played soccer, and an email evolved. There was about 80 people on the email. And this email, which was about where we playing tennis, where we playing soccer, where are we meeting up afterwards to get together and have a few pints, became this email about who's got an orthopedic surgeon, obviously, who's got a good dentist, who's got an appliance repair guy. And it just dawned on me, this was, it was active, but it was a very inefficient way to sort of get these answers. And once you got these answers, they were sort of lost in email, and it was just very inefficient. So I kind of came up with this idea that there should be an app for this, an app that allows people to tap their address book, because we all got great information in our address books of who we call often and who we use often, pull that information into an app and make that information easily shareable amongst friends, and allow people to say, I use this person for this, I use this person for that, and then also be able to track referrals. So I think a very natural thing is when people say, oh, who's your mason who did your front, your front steps? They look great. It's they recommend somebody, but they say, hey, remember to tell them that that I referred you. Mm-hmm. So people love to do that, and the app does that, and it helps track that in a fun way. So that's how the app came to be, and we launched last week, and here we are.
Now, weren't you surprised that didn't already exist in some ways? I'm sure people were like, didn't this already exist out there? Like, what kind of reactions are you getting?
I would say that's the number one question we get. When we explain to them this is what the app does, the number one question we get is, and this has not been done before, because it sounds so simple and it just makes a lot of sense.
No, totally. I think you're going to be gangbusters. So how did you all come together? How did this get to be the dream team? And we're missing one of your co-founders as well.
Our other co-founder, Pete Clark,
okay.
He lives in St. Augustine,
okay.
Florida. Original Jersey boy from the Seagirt Beach area.
Okay, nice.
And he's been down in Florida for years.
Okay, so we sent him well, but I'm glad all of you guys could be here today. So what about you? How did you guys all hook up for your significant roles?
I'll give my little 2 cents, which
Please.
is I moved to Maplewood last summer with my family from New York City, not Brooklyn. I know Maplewood is called Brooklyn West now, but
I'm one of those victims.
I actually moved from the Upper West Side.
Okay,
which is
we will
probably
still
the
accept that. That's okay.
second feeder zone for Maplewood. And, started meeting my neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
John Garbarino actually lives 2 houses down from me. And, our kids started playing together. We started hanging out together. John's a really social guy, and I started meeting a lot of people in the community through John. It was really cool. And one night we were just hanging out, and I was working at the Wall Street Journal at the time, because I've been a long-time journalist covering technology and finance. And I write a lot about startups. And part of my job and part of my expertise is in evaluating startups and identifying which ones are going to succeed.
Is this the first one you've been part of from the ground floor?
No. Actually, in the earlier part of my career, I worked for several startups in Silicon Valley, including Wired and TheStreet.com and Netscape. But I took a sort of segue in my career working for big media companies like the Wall Street Journal and Businessweek. So anyway, John told me about this idea he had one night for this app. And I was blown away. And I was like, holy cow, that is a great idea. And I thought, if we could execute on this idea, it could be huge.
I got an email or a text saying, I've been thinking about the idea and it's amazing. I will help you in any way to get this off the ground, marketing, financing, however we got to pull this off, we got to do it. So that's really how it started.
So I was helping him out on the side, and I guess I gave him a little validation of the idea, and then we got more serious about it. And I just left the Wall Street Journal 2 months ago, and to actually focus on this as my main project. And so that's kind of how I got involved, and you have a different story.
A little bit, but the way John and I started off, it's kind of your classic back of an envelope type story where we were at the pub, and he was describing what the app does and the naming and how he was going about the storytelling of who we use. And
I knew how talented Felix was, but I didn't want
He's
to.
one of
I
our
didn't want to
local
push him
talented
into it.
geniuses, and
Yeah,
no guilt
so-
or anything.
but he had
But
already
No
had-
pressure.
He'd already had the logo designed by someone else. I think it was in his family or whatever, somebody he knew
Friend
in
of
the
the family,
family. And he was showing me some of the designs, and then I started to get kind of hooked on the problem-solving aspect of it. And so we sat there with a couple of napkins, and
Literally.
the next day I woke up and I had these napkins in my pocket, and I was like, oh, it was one of those jobs where I couldn't stop until it was finished.
It
And
looks
so-
cool. I saw it.
So
It
he
looks great.
redesigned the logo.
So we
And the family's
redesigned
cool
it
with
for-
that, John? They haven't disowned you or anything?
No, yeah.
Okay, good. Just want to check.
So
I care,
He just,
it's-
yeah, he did a great job and really gave us an identity from that point on. And it's been really great. And he's right
That was
there
one of the first things
with
that got us
every day.
even more excited about. Honestly, it's like those little things
Yeah,
that get you.
it's
It makes you
important.
feel
Increase your
real. Though.
passion.
It makes
Yeah,
you feel
absolutely.
real.
Yeah,
Like, hey,
yeah.
this is we're
a
coming to market.
visual
This is our
thing.
brand. This is like
Because
really happening.
we're making
so.
software, which is very abstract,
Yes,
you know.
yeah.
And when you get a logo, when you get a brand, it's like it comes to life.
Pulls it together.
Yeah.
And I have to say they've been very easy to work with, and it's been a very rich collaboration. And usually my clients will give me a lot of pushback on some of the things that we've tried to do with the visual language is something that you don't really see too often, little twists and little whimsical little things here and there. And it's really sort of made the brand feel like it's easier to use and it's friendlier, which that's one of the goals that we're trying to do is connect people, connect the neighborhoods through the app, and we don't want it to look boring.
It will be interesting to see also how this evolves, because right now you're just a week out and change, moving forward. So to most of us that are not in technology, we go to our device and we see these cute little things, we press on them, and wow, we get to play games and do things and connect to people. And behind the scenes, what has to take place to launch something like this from, a regulation part or checking to see is anything else like this for infringement? Can you take us a little bit part of the process to kind of unveil some of the myth? Because I know there are people out there that are thinking, I have a great idea and I'd like to make an app also. What do you do?
Yeah, I think it's kind of like that movie Ratatouille. Anyone can cook, It's like you have a great idea, but it definitely helps to have a technology background. I'm not a developer. I have an understanding of technology. If you have a great idea, it's key to find people that can help you put it together. Obviously, there are great for people that are aspiring entrepreneurs or have an idea in their head for an app. There's a great program called Balsamic, for example, which allows you to, it's a sort of a digital version of the napkin, and allows you to create screens. If you can use PowerPoint, you can use this application, and you can literally drag and drop and start, create the login experience, and then create, what is the first thing someone's going to do in the app, and start building out wireframes of this. And that's what I did after Spencer and I talked about this, and we were going to do it. I got on this application, and I just started putting my vision of what this app was going to look like and what it was going to do and how it was going to be most useful. So it's, I don't have that background in product design specifically. I've always been in business development.
Now you do.
But now I do. Yeah, now I do.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. So it's cool. And then I think it's important to reach out. We've done a good job of networking and finding mentors, people that can help you, make sure you're going in the right direction, doing things the right way. Always, tap your network. Everyone knows somebody who's kind of in this space, I'm sure. So, but ultimately it's about, there's all certain different pieces you need to put together, and you can't do this alone. You're looking for investors. No investor is going to want to hire, is going to invest in a one-man show. It's just, those don't succeed. You've got to get a team together. 3 is a magic number, 4 is a magic number, and as long as the pieces are the right pieces, and that's what we were fortunate to have, putting this together. So, but again, there's software out there that's really easy to use. Like I said, as easy as PowerPoint that gets you started, and then you can present. And what I did was we took that idea and presented it to our other founder, Pete Clark, who's the developer. He's the guy who can create the back end, create the front end, put it all together. He saw it and took him through the wireframes, and he's basically said, I got goosebumps looking at this. It's like, it's such a good idea. And I said, well, we're looking for somebody to get involved, to be a partner, to be a founder, and help us build this. And he was like, I'm on board. And ever since then, he's been, right there with us, building this thing, and it's been great. So it's a good chemistry, and that's really important for a founding team.
Absolutely. Yeah, you have to have a strong, forefront to, because as you mentioned that you have intention of possibly growing this into a large organization, that could happen. What kind of other apps would you say had that happen to? Where are some other apps that became actual organizations that have grown that you guys kind of look up to, being in this phase and having been from startups and stuff like that, Spencer? What are some things you think, wow, I'd love to be like them someday?
I think Instagram was the first really successful app. They got bought by Facebook for $1 billion.
Wouldn't that be sweet?
Yeah, I mean, before Instagram, I think people were kind of interested in apps and they thought they were useful, but there wasn't a sense that, or there wasn't a confidence that they could actually make a lot of money. And there's still a lot of apps that have to prove to actually become real businesses, but they definitely are creating value, and the value is going up pretty high. So for example, Instagram was first, but now Uber, which is an app, really. That's how you use Uber. It's the ride-sharing service. They're actually the most valuable privately held tech startup in the world right now, and they're worth like $18 billion as of their last funding round. They're probably worth more now.
And
So
they're about a year and a half out or so?
no, they're like 4 years old.
Oh, 4 years
Yeah.
old, okay.
So the numbers are going up because these things we carry around in our pocket, these smartphones, are becoming really the main way we communicate and interact with the world. They're becoming these remote, I call them the remote controls for our lives. And so now we're trying to make this new channel or what have you for managing this one part of your life, which is what you do in your local community and how you get stuff done. And people are really busy, they have kids, they're working, and they need something to really make that process easier. And so I think that's an inspiration for us. It's like Instagram and Uber.
Well, it's interesting because I know on Facebook, even locally, a lot of us are friends. We're like, hey, where do you guys do so-and-so, or I need someone to do this. So we've used that a lot on Facebook. So it's kind of help organize this, because then you get this and you're like, oh my God, who the heck sent this to me? And you're going through all of these old comments trying to figure out that thread. We're here, you have it all tracked, and you can, okay, let me go to this group and see, who are the architects or the designers or the plumbers or whatnot in that way.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be cool to see how that goes. So we're gonna take a brief pause for a moment, and then we'll be back soon to continue our conversation with the guys from WhoWeUse.
Local government, local educational institutions, and local community members all use cable access TV to communicate their message. They depend upon it as an affordable means of outreach. Public educational and government access television empowers local government agencies, individuals, and groups to use the media to speak directly to their constituents in a more direct and cost-effective way. Make sure everyone has a voice. Support your local PEG channels.
Hi, we're back with the founders of WhoWeUse. So how did this work out to be put on the Apple, App Store? Did you actually have a meeting with Apple to be approved, or what is this process like to be on the love list so we can find you guys easily?
Sure, yeah. It's not so much a love list. It's about building something that...
They don't call it that?
No.
I'm so shocked.
It's more of a torture chamber now.
Oh, right.
No. It's something that, Apple does have an approval process, so you can't just put up anything. It has to look good. It has to function. It can't have bugs. So we, it's you basically set up a developer account with Apple. You pay $100. If you're a corporation, you have to go through the process of getting we call a D&B number, Dun & Bradstreet number. So there's some things you got to do. It's a little bit of a process, but once you do that and you've built your app, if you've built something that's good, you submit it to the store. What they call a binary. It's just the code that makes up the app that will be distributed to the phones, and they take a look at it, make sure it works right. They test it, make sure that the content is appropriate and meets all their sort of rules, and then they'll approve it, and then you get in the App Store.
So two things. How do you protect yourself during this, and how long is that process? Well, I guess second question first, how long did that process take? But also, when you're releasing that to share, aren't you a little concerned? Well, what if someone grabs this and kind of runs with it? And they're like,
Or steals it?
who we really use, like how do you protect yourself as you are sharing your ideas?
Well, I think it's smart to be kind of stealthy at first, especially when your product isn't launched. There's a little upside to, going public with what you're doing because it just tips off your competitors,
Hey
like
guys,
you said.
yeah.
But you need to sort of be doing things behind the scenes and laying the groundwork for everything. And Apple, as John said, has this approval process, which we filed for an expedited approval, which took about a week. It sometimes can take 2 weeks or 3 weeks, depending on how busy they are. The other big operating system is Android, made by Google. And what's great about Android is there is really no vetting. So once you submit your app on
They do
Android,
look at it, but it's not.
they
as
do look at
thorough.
it, but nothing even close to what Apple does. It can take basically a day.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
our Android
Right.
edition, we're hoping to come out at the end of October. And so, when people ask us like, oh, I have Android, we just say, just
Great.
hold tight
No
for a couple
problem.
weeks and
Yeah.
it's coming
Okay.
out.
But as far as protecting yourself, you can file for patents, and it's pretty expensive to
Did you guys do that or no?
File the patent provision, which starts the process, gets you, down that you filed something. The best way to protect yourself is to create a great product, and put something out there that people are going to use, they're going to like. Because, if you have an idea, a wise person once told me, when you have a great idea, 15 other people have that same idea. So it's really about how you execute on that vision and creating something that really brings it to life and makes it something people want to use.
Did you ever think this is something you'd be doing, creating an app?
Creating an app. I think creating a business, yes, but whether it was an app.
It's
that
wild,
did it,
right? Because
yeah,
when we
it
were
was the
little,
medium, I don't know.
this was not an option, and now this becomes a whole new way of revenue, of job creation, and everything. Felix, I know you've created many apps for New York Times and through a lot of other organizations throughout.
I have to say, all of the pieces of art that we have and the little icons are original, proprietary. You've never seen them anywhere before. So once those are date stamped into our computers and we log them up somewhere, that's not an official copyright, but there's a certain copyright that allows that if it's date stamped and
Protected, yeah.
it's minimally protected, but we feel pretty good about what the product that we created, because there's been a lot of time and effort that has gone into each little minor detail. We spent the entire day talking about how we can improve this one little tiny icon, and there's 30 or 40 icons inside the app.
And that one little thing accomplishes, like in some ways, it just accomplishes so much.
It's
funny.
good to have the
Yeah.
conversation about what means what and what people will understand, and we'd like to test it and and really try it out and make sure that it's going to communicate and work as a product.
That's good. So what are some of the lessons that you've learned during this time? I know it's only about a week or so from launch by the time this airs, but obviously you've been baking this idea for how long? How many months have you been baking this, and what are some of the lessons learned?
First talked about it in November, development.
So it's almost happy anniversary for a year.
Almost,
so.
yeah, almost
Actually,
a
it's
year.
almost like a baby because we're actually pregnant for almost 10 months, so
Right.
it's very similar.
Exactly.
Good factoid. So
Yeah.
I would say one lesson is be bold and be creative, because it's very competitive out there. And if you're not thinking big, you're probably not going to stand out. And so, for example, like this little sign that you hold up, right? Felix came up with this great idea for these pin drop signs, which is kind of bringing a new school mentality to an old idea, right? The sign in your yard, right? And we're reinventing it. And it's getting attention. And as you noted earlier, we've stirred up a little controversy in the town because the town has
here,
told
hold it for a
us.
second while you're
Yeah,
talking about it, so we
here.
can see here.
This awesome sign. The town has told us that they believe that these signs violate an ordinance which only allows for people to put signs in their yards for contractors for a limited period of time.
Yeah.
And we actually went before the town committee on Tuesday this week, and we petitioned them to get an exception to the ordinance because we believe that the rule is really arbitrary and it could even be violating free speech and be unconstitutional because you're basically saying there's one class of companies that are allowed to speak and there's another that aren't. And it's just not fair.
Yeah, and this is a
And
new
these
way
are-
of companies now that exist.
When this
So
ordinance was
that's-
written, the internet didn't even exist, nor did smartphones. So what was cool was even though they told us to take down the signs, the committee members, most of them expressed support for the idea, and they realized that times do change.
Even
and that
in Maplewood,
the
they
law
do.
needs to be updated to reflect the current reality of where we're living. And so we're actually going before the committee on Thursday next week to talk to them more to create like a solution where everyone wins. Like we get to advertise, the town gets to grow a local business, the town looks like they're smart because they're supporting, the future instead of the past.
Yeah, because it's like, I don't mind Wilbur's Painting put a sign in my yard for a while I'm using it. Well, if I'm using your app, why can't I keep your sign?
Yeah, and we don't want the signs to be up for, forever. It's just for a limited period of time.
Just through the holidays, we can decorate in lights and wreaths. It would be lovely.
Right, and this is an expression, we don't really think of this as advertising. It's our friends putting it in their yards. We're not going around and putting them in people's yards that we don't know.
It's not advertising.
Well,
We're not
that's good
paying
to
for
know.
it.
They are, we're not paying for it, and this is our friends and our neighbors, our local community expressing their support for this business and this idea, and they want it to succeed. So
It's also too, like, as you're launching, people are gonna hear about it, they're gonna be like, what was that called again? That aren't directly with friends with you on Facebook or something. So this is a great way of, people say, oh, let me check that out and go to the web to
and
explore that.
if we wear our t-shirts around town, people are stopping us and saying, what is that? I see that around town.
Oh,
Are you
yeah.
the guys?
You're like, oh, you're that guy.
You're that guy.
You've heard that a couple times.
Yeah, but it sparks a conversation, and they find out what the app's about, and they think it's brilliant. I mean, that's the word we get a lot, and we don't claim to be brilliant, but the idea is pretty good.
That's good. You can claim some brilliance, all three of you. I think it's fabulous.
And it's been working, and we'll build a critical mass here, and this app will hopefully proliferate and take off across the country.
We already have users in Baltimore, and Chicago, and Los Angeles,
Austin, Texas.
Like it's actually organically developing a footprint in big cities around the country. We're not even advertising it really.
That's neat. It makes me want to call my friends that are in different parts of Texas, California, and say, hey, check this out, and
You haven't done that yet?
try it. Not yet. I've been a little busy. I'm waiting for that check to clear, John. So we have a few minutes left, so I'd love to know, what were some of the biggest learnings in the past almost year from taking this process? Because I'm sure you thought some things, oh, this is definitely this, and you're like, oh, as you peel back the onion, you realize it's a different story, or kind of take this highway a different direction and do a U-turn. Anything that you can share that for other people that might be looking about wanting to do this, that they could learn from your do's and don'ts, or just any stories we might find somewhat amusing as you've been.
Well, I think if you're passionate about
Launching.
something, you have a good idea, just don't keep thinking about it, like put it down.
Don't be a dreamer, be a doer.
Yeah, well, I guess so, just
Yeah.
start, making it come together, and part of that is like, finding these software applications like Balsamic. If you have an idea for an app, you can just start speccing it out and get feedback from people. What do you think about this? And from there, makes it a lot easier to line up the critical pieces that you need to pull off a project. So I would say don't hesitate. With all the software programs that are out there to help you create software, just go do it.
I think one lesson that I learned personally is, and they say this a lot about software projects, things always take longer than you think they're going to take. And when you're working it for a startup, it's really in a large part a race against time, because, as John was saying, like if you have a really good idea, chances are someone else is working on that idea. So you're really like just racing against, the competition and yourself primarily, and your vision for what you want to do. So just really be conscious about your time and try to find ways to accelerate, the development of your software, because it always takes longer. And if you could find ways to accelerate that, it'll increase your chances of success.
And being from startups and stuff, if you didn't happen to have, buddies that could invest and stuff, where do people go to find that? How do you flag an idea and get it out there for some possible backers?
Well, there's actually a lot of angel investment groups around in the country these days. In different states, they have angel investment groups. There's websites that have come up called, they're, crowdfunding. I don't know if you've heard of this term. Basically, anyone can almost become an investor these days. So I would check out Angel List is one of them. There's a New York Angel Group. There's just tons of resources out there.
There's some great incubators as well.
Yeah.
Explain that term.
So an incubator is an organization that, they all do things slightly different. So some will take equity in your company, and you come to their space and they provide support.
Like Shark Tank?
Yeah,
You guys ready for the Shark Tank?
Similar to that. Some don't take equity, and they provide you that support. It may not be as many days out of the month, out of the period in which you're involved, but they provide a lot of support in introducing you to the right people, giving you advice, and making sure that they set up panels where you can listen in on, bring in really great entrepreneurs that have been through this process, and investors that can tell you about how to go about it. So those are great things to check out and find. There's one in New York called First Growth Venture Network that's really popular. It's actually one of those tech stars. You probably can name a few others.
Well, Techstars is a big one. Y Combinator is a big one. And that's the biggest one in San Francisco. Yeah.
Neat. That's helpful information.
Yeah.
For sure. So Felix, as far as companies starting and trying to get a logo or marketing efforts, what would you say for people if money is not crazy abundant in the beginning, how can they start to kind of get a look together for a pre-launch?
Well, that's an interesting question. You can hire somebody and try to find somebody that you might know that's local. Most of the clients that I deal with are used to doing this sort of thing. They're either agencies or design firms or magazines. So this was a new and unique situation for me where I'm working with my friends who really haven't done too much of this before. So a lot of it is educating them a little bit on what I see, and then it's really been a fruitful collaboration because I'm learning as I go, and they are too. And
we also saw a lot of value in what he was doing from in a long-term perspective. This wasn't like, let's get a logo
Let's
and
look
some
cute in the
icons,
beginning,
and then we're good. We don't need you anymore. We saw that what he was creating was like to have that ability to tap that on an ongoing basis through the life of this company and this project and this company as it goes forward was extremely valuable. This stuff, all the stuff we're doing offline with handouts and flyers and to promote the business that we'll continue doing, to have a talent like Felix on board
Yeah,
as one of our partners. So we're not in a situation where we're paying him. He's part of the team, so he's involved. He's got stake in the game. He's an equity partner.
That's great.
And I think I would recommend that startups take that very seriously, the design side of things, and that there is a long-term role
benefit
for
long-term
someone like Felix in a company like this. Yeah.
Sounds good. Well, we've just run out of time, so thank you, John, Spencer, and Felix for joining us today. I wish you much success.
Thank you.
And I'll be watching.
Download the app.
and
Tell them to
grow.
download the app.
Yes, and you have to download the app. So thank you all for joining us. Please download the app. You saw it here, WhoWeUse. And until we meet again, I wish you much career success.